What is going on, guys? Welcome to the Wednesday live stream, and a little bit early today. And today I have on a special guest. How's it going today, Thomas?
It's going good. Glad to be here. It's been a long time coming. You asked me a while back, but I live in the middle of nowhere, and it took the last 2 years for us to finally get caught up with some fiber internet. So now I can join you. So
I,
thanks for having me.
I'm excited for you that you have upgraded from dial-up to like crazy fast internet. It's literally the most extremes you can get, but good place to be.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I also learned that you have your own time zone today.
Just for me. It's just Thomas's time zone.
It is. So we're complete opposite ends of the country, so it's good. So you are a pretty old school reefer. You've been in this hobby a long time.
Yeah, it's very long time. I started when I was really young. I think I had my first reef tank when I was 16, 17. That was like the beginning for me. So many years ago.
Many years. So what actually, okay, so what was it actually got you into getting your first tank in the first place?
Okay, so basically, when I was really young, my dad had aquariums. Like that's how a lot of us get in, or like parents had aquariums.
Hmm.
And I was fascinated with fish, and I used to watch as a kid like The Little Mermaid on repeat. Like I
Yeah.
loved it, right? So 16 years old, I'm like, I got to get my first job, local aquarium shop, because I mean, it just made sense. So I went and got my first job. I had a couple of freshwater tanks that year, 16 years old, and then within the year of getting that job, I saw all the saltwater fish, saw all of the corals, clams specifically, really like fascinated by, and I said I have to do this. So I pulled the trigger on a used saltwater aquarium. It was a 29-gallon Eclipse system that probably never should have had corals in it, and and that's what got the ball rolling. So
That's awesome.
yeah.
So you started pretty young. So your parents had a tank, so that helped feed it a little bit from your early days.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, nice. Oh, that's awesome. There's so many people I find that is that similar thing, right? They grow up with it and it just kind of sucks them into it, or something you kind of get when they get hooked. So you've always been hooked because you've been into it for what, just shy of 17 years now, eh?
Yeah, just coming up on 17 years. Yeah.
No, that's pretty awesome. And now you've done tons of different stuff in the industry. You're obviously now making videos again. I'm sure everyone
Yeah.
knows you on BRS. And I'm noticing this wonderful guitar collection in the background.
Oh, yeah. One of my other hobbies. I'm one of those people who like try to pick up a whole bunch of things and dabble in all kinds of stuff, and it just keeps me on my toes, keeps me fascinated. This was the other thing I started when I was younger. So between
Nice.
guitars, reef keeping, and every other pet on the planet that I've had, I've kept myself pretty busy.
That's good though. I'm with you. I'm kind of like all or nothing when I go with hobbies. So, and then over the
Yeah.
years, you just gain this massive collection of hobbies. Kind of gross. It's fun though. Certain ones like reef keeping, obviously you stick with it, so it's good. Now, when you started, 16, 17 years ago, how have you changed much in your mythology or kind of the way you keep tanks then versus now?
It's funny that I've never actually sat and thought about that exact question. I knew you were gonna do this to me, man. I
I
knew
know.
it. You and your
Sorry, it happens.
It's okay.
Deep.
Yeah. So okay, I think the key thing about how I started, I'm gonna say, getting competent at reef keeping
Hmm.
was at first I was just kind of following the random advice I was getting from the other people that I worked with at the store, and the fish room managers and stuff that took care of everything. But pretty early on in my reefing career, I ended up finding a mentor. So his name's Marty. He was one of the best guys in the GTA back then when it came to keeping specifically like Acropora, SPS, like the hard stuff, the things that everybody had a really hard time with, even back then. Like
Hmm.
so he kind of took me under his wing, showed me what he did, and I pretty much just put that forward with every single system that I did. And the only things that kind of changed were the equipment or the tools that I was using to get that job done.
Hmm.
But just as an example, like up until literally this week, I have never used an aquarium controller for a reef tank. Nothing, like
Craziness.
never.
Craziness.
Yeah. The closest I ever got was an automatic doser or
Mhm.
like a heater controller. But yeah, my methodology has always just been like keep it super simple. It's been refugium, skimmer, heavy lighting, heavy flow, substrate, whatever rock didn't really matter to me,
Mhm.
and go. That was it. And just keep testing, keep doing water changes, and it always worked out.
Yeah.
So I just keep doing it.
So you technically, I'm not going to count your new tank that's still in the works, but prior to that, I would say you're probably a pretty low tech reefer then.
Low tech in the sense of automation for sure.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But I mean, I had one of my tanks that I showed you some pictures of is a 20-gallon. It's my first, what I would consider my first like really successful reef tank.
Mm-hmm.
It was a 20-gallon, 24 inches wide, 12 inches tall, and 18 inches front to back.
Yeah.
That thing had a 250-watt halide, a 175-watt halide, and 2 VHO actinics on it.
So insane lighting.
And a sump, yeah. And it was, and a sump, plus I had an Aquamatic Turbo Floater 1000 for a skimmer, which back then was a pretty impressive skimmer.
Mm-hmm.
So I was never like shy about putting really good equipment on tanks. I was always doing everything by hand.
Okay.
Beyond that.
So, yeah. So you like good equipment, but just not hardcore to automation.
You got it.
Okay. Yeah. That's a good way to say it. Okay. So that's another question, actually. So, I mean, obviously we all like our fancy equipment. Now on a lot of your tanks, did you go for the budget stuff, or did you find yourself drawn to the high end snazzy stuff? It's kind of your path.
Ooh. When I started, for sure,
mm-hmm.
I was really careful with my budget because I was like a 16-year-old kid. Whatever money I made at my job basically just went right back into my tanks. I'm convinced that for the first like 5 years, I literally made nothing because I just kept spending it. I gotta say, like, probably from the time I met Marty going forward, spending money on equipment became like nothing. Like the value of reefing gear.
Mm-hmm.
Put it this way, I had no problem spending $400 on a light, but you could not convince me to spend $400 on, I don't know, anything else, anything. It could be a computer screen. I didn't care. Everything else was too expensive. Why is that so expensive? Coral for $300, no problem. Like,
I know, I do the same thing. You're like at the grocery, you're like, what, $10 for that? It's like $50 for this little frag. You're like, okay.
yeah, just like the perceived value of things has shifted. So yeah, I've never had an issue throwing money at gear. There did come a point in my career, just as somebody in the industry, where obtaining gear just becomes very fluid.
Yeah.
And I've always been very easy come, easy go with that stuff too. Like Marty was such a huge help. He's the one who gave me the metal halide system for that 20-gallon tank way back when. He just gave it to me. I was like, are you nuts? But he did. Nice. So I've always kind of like kept that going. Anytime I get things, easy come, easy go. Just try to, keep the hobby moving for everybody.
No, that's a good way to do it for sure. Now with, okay, actually question. So you used to be hardcore at the halides. Would you use them now today? Would you ever go back to them?
Oh, that, you know what? I've thought about it a whole bunch of times. I think ultimately no, because I know how much electricity costs now as an adult.
That's right.
When I was a kid, exactly. When I was a kid renting or at paying to stay at my parents' house, like pitching in, I didn't care about the electricity because that wasn't on my radar.
Yeah.
But now, yeah, it's a hard sell. I love halides for a lot of reasons, but I made the switch probably back in 2009 from halides to T5s when they first started to get big.
Yeah.
And I never looked back, solely because they got the job done. They did it well. And the power consumption was just so much less than running like on that tank. I had two 400-watt halides at one point, I'm pretty sure.
800 watts just for your lights. Yeah, that's a good chunk.
I know, right?
Yep. So now how about now? Now, do you still like your T5s or your LEDs now?
Oh, LEDs. I remember I switched over to LEDs. I don't know if anybody's going to remember the Solaris light fixtures that came out. They were one of the first super competent LED fixtures that came out. They got shut down, I think, in their first few years of being out due to a patent that was filed many years previous to that. Yeah, nobody ever made anything. They just filed a patent for an idea, and it kind of pulled the rug out from under them. Those units had a lot of problems. I mean, they were just super intriguing because of what they could do. Blue LEDs, people just realized how much color pop you got out of a blue diode versus like a fluorescent lamp or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, I switched over to a Solaris as soon as Radions were available. From Gen 1 Radion up, I've been using Radions. Max Spec I've tried. It's been basically LED from that point forward.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah.
The biggest thing is it's so hard to try and get that same vibrant look or color pop from anything but LEDs for me.
Exactly.
Even with like, I know even on my tank, even with the whites cranked up, I still get nice crisp color pop on everything. And it just gives it such a vibrant look. It's hard to give it up, at least for me.
Yeah, no, it's tough. I feel the exact same way. And funny enough, like the Radeon Pros, we've had this conversation because
Hmm.
some people really like the blue tanks, and I'm a huge fan of whiter tanks because I feel like it shows the fish off better, it shows the corals off better.
Hmm.
That's just my opinion.
Yep.
But that's the thing, man. Like you can't, even with halides and VHOs back in the day, you can't get the same color pop out of a
Hmm.
VHO actinic that you can out of LED. It's just not
Yep.
possible. So yeah, no, once you see LED color pop, it's hard to turn away from it.
So true, right? So what are you going with on your new tank? What's the plan?
So this tank, the original plan was a pair of Radeon G5 blues.
Hmm.
Then I realized I just like the blue heat sink, and I
Fair.
right? And I was like, no, I should really stick with the pros because I
Mhm.
like the white. Then Ryan and the boys at BRS obviously have done a lot of testing, and I know I want to do sticks. I'm addicted to SPS ever since I started doing them.
Mhm.
And I was like, no, I got to throw some T5s in there just for good measure,
Yep.
some, ATI Blue Plus.
Mhm.
So that's kind of what I got set up right now, except for the G5s aren't on there. I just have a Kessel because it's easier to turn on and off.
Yep.
And because I don't have any corals yet or anything, I'm just for the sake of having the tank lit up in videos and stuff, I'll just crank on the
Mood lighting.
yeah, exactly, the Kessel for that. But it's an old A360 tuna blue
Mhm.
that I used in the past alongside T5s. But yeah, so I think the ultimate plan is my DX18 dimmable
Yep.
T5s run through the Apex
Mhm.
and my pair of XR15 G5 Pros. That's what I'm
Nice.
going for lighting on this system.
It'd be a good blend. I did on my frag tank that I had in my office. I did the same thing where I had 3 XR15s and then 4 T5 bulbs for a while to try out the hybrid.
Did you like it?
As long as you don't see the bulbs. I don't like seeing T5 bulbs. I find them like bright and glary and distracting. So as long as you don't see the bulbs, then I kind of like it. But at the same time, with the G5s, I don't feel you need T5s because they have such a crazy blanket of spread. I feel like it's in the middle of an LED and a T5 already. So I feel
Yeah,
like you're like 70% of the way there without having the extra bulk above your tank. So
yeah,
personally, like I'm just going to do straight up LEDs on mine. But I don't know. They do have some advantage, but I don't think you need it. But it probably doesn't hurt to have it, obviously.
yeah. I also kind of just like the fact that the T5s mute the shimmer a bit. I love
Hmm.
shimmer,
Yep.
halide shimmer, like nothing could beat it. But LED shimmer, no matter what LED it is, with the exception of Kessel's
Hmm.
did it right from a shimmer perspective. Um, the G5s are nice and mute, like as they
Hmm.
are, but washing it out just a bit more with the T5s is a little easier on my eyes. I don't know what it is. Over the years, like my eyes have just gotten really sensitive to any kind of flickering or anything like that.
Those
So
last 17 years of staring at UV and blue lighting all day.
yeah, something went wrong. Now my eyes just don't work.
It happens. All right. So solid plan for the new one. So this is going to be your first aquarium controller, too.
Yes.
I'm amazed
It's
you've lasted that long. That's good, though.
it's just so easy not to have one.
That's fair.
Like if you don't know it and you don't know what you're missing,
Hmm.
I really feel like it's easy to just not try it.
Yeah, fair.
But you know, especially joining BRS, like it's really forced me to dive into redundancy a lot
Hmm.
further than I have previously. Like anybody who used to watch even my freshwater videos when I was with that previous channel, I always try to build redundancy into things because I know things are going to fail.
Yep.
So double filters, double heaters, whatever it is.
Hmm.
But I have thankfully never had anything go wrong with a tank that would have made it a catastrophic failure that I
Nice.
couldn't get to the tank for
Hmm.
because somebody was home to tell me about it.
Yeah.
But if somebody's not home to tell me about it, or
Then
somebody
what?
doesn't go down to the basement,
Hmm.
right where the tank is, I don't want to lose everything over something as simple as just having a message pop up on my phone to tell me, "Hey, something's wrong. Go check it out." So yeah, it's 90% of it's for redundancy. Um, I mean, I'm curious to see how. using an Apex is gonna
Mhm.
make reef keeping easier for me, considering I find, just doing water changes and stuff, these remedial tasks that a lot of people are trying
Yep.
to like get rid of. I'm
Okay.
home all the time. I work from home, so I'm
Yep.
like, I'll just do them.
Okay. So
So, but I'm
for just the little things that make your life easier, like you put the tank in feed mode, shut off your skimmer while your return pump's off, turn it back on a few minutes later so it doesn't overflow until your water stabilizes. It's little things like that. That those are like the nice to have things. As for as redundancy, like if your heater's too hot, turn off the heater controller. Like always use a heater controller, right? But I still use the Apex on top of that. So it's just kind of like backup, or like I run ozone. So if ORPS ever gets too high, turn off the ozone. So it's just like little fail safes, or calcium reactor, if it ever gets too low, turn off the solenoid to prevent gas from like melting your media. So it's those kind of
exactly.
things. Like you don't need it, but it's a level of backup. And that's a big thing for me on that one.
Yeah, and you know what? I fully agree. And typically, I'd be like, okay, I'm gonna set up a calcium reactor. I'm gonna get a pH controller for it,
Hmm.
right?
Yep.
Separate pH controller or ORP. I've got an ORP monitor separate specifically for my ozonizer or ozone generator or whatever. Um, but I like the idea that if I want to, I can just use the Apex and have it built into one place where I can monitor everything
Hmm.
through my phone from anywhere at any
Hmm.
time for whatever reason. I can just check in, or it can tell me if something's going haywire,
Hmm.
and I always have that opportunity to come back. If I'm just using, a calcium reactor with no Apex that has zero way to tell me anything is going wrong,
Yep.
then I don't find out until I get home.
Hmm.
I don't want that to happen while I'm on vacation or away for the weekend so yeah, like 100% just having the redundancies and having the option to have it take over for you in the event that another piece of equipment's failing. Or you can just, make that other piece of equipment moot and just use the Apex straight. Yeah,
Hmm.
I see the value in it.
If you,
As somebody who's been pushing it off so hard for so long, I do see the value in it.
if you're traveling or out of town and you get an alert, you can like open the app and be like, oh, let me turn off that piece of equipment. That's an issue. It's like those little things are nice. Okay, two quick questions before they scroll away on me.
Sure.
Skian was asking, are you using presets for your G15s or did you make your own? I actually made my own schedule, which is AB plus, and I modified it for about 3 or 4 hours of the day to be whiter, add a little more ramp up and ramp down. I actually shared my schedule in the Monday video, so check that one out. And Insane Reefer, what are your thoughts on combining Radions with Reef Bright blue LEDs? So I've never used the legit Reef Brights. I had a buddy that had like knockoff Reef Brights that were very similar. And I borrowed his because I was curious to see the difference. And I was playing with it and and I had the G4s on my tank at the time. And I was able to mimic the same color pop with the Radion. So to me, I didn't think there was any benefit to adding them. Maybe if you want a little more spread or par or add additional color pop, but I was able to get this very similar look through just the Radions. So I don't know, but then again, I haven't used the real ones. These were like some knockoff clones of it. So mileage may vary. Have you used the Reef Brights?
Funny enough, I have a set here
Mm-hmm.
that are meant to attach to a Radeon, like it's
Okay.
the
The little wing
Hydra.
things. Yeah.
Exactly. I have not opened it yet,
Okay.
so I don't know what they look like, but I'm gonna say just based on the data that I've seen in terms, especially with the XHOs that we've seen recently
Mm-hmm.
through BRS, if they are analog or able to completely replace, a T5 hybrid fixture,
Yep.
a very large part of me wants to just take my DX18
Mm-hmm.
and put it off to the side and throw, XHOs on there for fill light instead of adding a bunch of Radions, partially because that's much less expensive than
Mm-hmm.
having like just, 13, 13 Radions over a tank. Um, I'm curious. I'm curious to see what the difference is, like how much it's actually adding. I don't think from a color perspective necessarily, like you said, the Radeons do a great job
Mm-hmm.
of color pop on their own. I don't think it's really going to add a ton of color pop so much as add a lot of fill light and a lot more par to the setup.
Yeah.
That's where I think the benefit's going to be, but it won't even be for everyone. Just
Yeah.
stickheads will see it the most, but most people are not going to find a massive benefit in adding to their Radeons.
No, I agree. Now, if you have T5s, 100% the best way to add color pop to T5s. Like that
Yeah.
is the most popular lighting I see on Sony Reef tanks is, you got your ATI bulbs, ATI light fixture with an XHO on each side of it. Like it just adds that extra pop to the T5. So that's a super popular combination. As for adding it to actual LEDs, it depends. It's a toss up. Nick's saying different wavelengths. I don't actually know what the wavelengths are. I don't think they fully share or tell you what it is, so it's a bit of a mystery. So spectrometers are beyond my fanciness. And we got a power meter.
Yeah, me too. It's all good.
Although Ryan got one, so I'm sure there's gonna be lots of stuff coming on, different spectrums and stuff. So that'll be kind of cool to see. Where does Thomas live? Nova Scotia.
Yep.
You betcha.
I'm all the way on the Atlantic coast.
Yep, way over there.
Yeah, Dorian paid me a visit when Dorian came through and wrecked my basement.
Oh, nice guy.
I know, right? Well, everything's back now, but it was funny. I was in Florida for MACNA. And they're like, "Oh, we're shutting down early because of Dorian." I fly home and then Dorian hits my house.
Oh, dang.
We stayed at
the hotel. It was safe.
Oh,
should have stayed and hung out. Could have went to Disney. That was fun. There you go. Survived a hurricane. Hopefully the guitars were on the wall. They were safe. That's good.
They were in cases at the time.
Oh, dang. Okay, so we went a good chunk down the lighting rabbit hole. Okay, now from, over the last 15 or so years, refugiums, skimmers, pumps, like has a lot of that stuff changed for you or in your eyes, or how you look at things or do things, or is it basically the same?
The funniest thing is you pick like the two pieces of equipment that I personally feel like have changed the least, like in their actual function. Like a skimmer, I can take a skimmer from 2004 and it'll still work today. Yep. Like it's still going to do what it's meant to do. It's a foam fractionator. The thing skimmers have gotten a lot better at over the years is being able to tune them easily and efficiency. Really, you can get a smaller skimmer to do the same job of a bigger skimmer way back when.
Yeah, that's fair.
But the what's happening is identical. You suck in air, you mix it with water, and stuff sticks to it. But and refugiums. Now, my very first refugium, I was reading. I remember I used to spend a lot of time on the forums because that's where everybody was talking, right? That, or I used to go to like the Toronto Reef group. I can't remember what they were called, but we all got together. I was always the youngest person there for sure, right?
Yeah.
Me and like a bunch of 50-year-old dudes. And I remember hearing about refugiums and people using Callirpa. At the time, Callirpa was massive. Like nobody used anything but Callirpa. And I was like, okay, this sounds, smart. I had a 65-gallon reef at the time. So I took a 10-gallon tank. Nobody made anything back then. I took a 10-gallon tank, drilled holes in it, put bulkheads, stuck it above my reef, pumped water up into it, and let it overflow back into the tank. And I was the first person that I knew of who actually made a refugium and stuck it on their tank. But then it wasn't long after that people started to catch on that was a really smart idea. And then, they started to become more mainstream. And now like every sump has a refugium. Sumps have changed a lot. Back in the day, it was just an acrylic trickle filter or a tank that you just like glued some stuff
or
in
the wet dry.
Exactly. And now, sumps have changed a lot in their function, like what they're capable of doing and what's inside of them. But like skimmers, same thing. Refugiums just became way more common, which I think is a great thing. Refugium lighting, that took off like crazy.
Yep. Because
back in the day, what'd you use? You used like a compact fluorescent light bulb or just whatever you had.
Bulbs, whatever old lighting you had.
Power compacts, I think, is what I used to use. But what else has not changed is the question.
It's true. I don't know. The biggest thing for me, I've noticed, like, equipment's gotten quieter. Like that, I've noticed that's a big trend too, right? Like old skimmers were loud. Now the new ones are pretty darn good. Like unless you're in your cabinet, they're not. You don't really overly notice it anymore, which has been a big one.
Yeah, I didn't even. You know what? You're absolutely right. I didn't even think of that. Overflow systems, man. Overflows.
Yeah.
Holy, have they gotten quiet? The Herbie method, like the first one, I remember back in the day when Stockman and Durso, like when the Durso overflow came, which by the way now is loud, like considered quite noisy. But when Durso first came out, that was like a revelation. And then the Stockman overflow, and then the Herbie method, which the Herbie method I gave a try for the first time in 2009 on a 40 breeder system. And now we've got the Bean Animal system too.
Wait, Durso's 1, Herbie's 2, Bean Animal's 3, right?
Yeah, so
Okay.
Durso
Yeah.
is just like the candy cane shape to the
Yeah.
pipe with an air vent at the top to try to
Mhm.
quiet down uh, the entry. Herbie is main drain, backup
Emergency.
drain,
Yeah.
and then throttled with a gate valve, right? So you control basically it creates a full siphon and you can control the amount of water above the main drain. And
Mhm.
then Bean Animal just adds another redundancy to it, basically.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, man, those are for me. That was the best thing ever. I didn't realize that not hearing your tank could be so beautiful until I made my first silent tank. I
Oh,
was like, oh,
so good.
yeah,
Um, that is one of my OCDs about making my tank as quiet as possible. Like it's stupid the amount of stuff I've upgraded just to make it quiet, but it makes me happy, so it's worth it.
yeah, absolutely. Especially if it's in a living space, like if
Mhm.
you and for me, like with the Red Sea tank, thankfully it is super quiet, just like by default.
Mhm.
But like when you're shooting video
Mhm.
in a room where you have to have a tank all the time with, by the way, anybody watching, this is the opposite end of the BRS studio. So I'm looking at what you guys see on the video all the time. This is what's on the other end.
Nice.
But yeah, being able to like sit in the same room or stand beside it, not have to
Mhm.
hear it is super important.
Oh, huge. I can reach the one tank on one side of me. Like there's one
Yeah.
so close. Like yeah, it drive me nuts if it's too loud. Couldn't take it.
Yeah.
That's awesome. How about Powerheads? Flow, anything change for you versus the
E-
old AC propeller pumps versus the DC? Any
Everything,
difference?
everything has
Everything.
changed. Oh man. So I remember the struggle of trying to get like a Penguin or Marineland Powerhead to not just blow the flesh off your corals. We'd find all kinds of ways to like deflect it or rig something up so it would like move it around for you. Or man, I remember that struggle like it was yesterday. And then I remember when they started modding like MaxiJet pumps, like a
Yeah.
MaxiJet 1200 mod for the front to turn into a prop pump.
Hmm.
Um, and back then, sea swirls were huge too. Like getting a sea swirl on your tank and running your return through that so that it oscillates the return output.
You don't see those
But
much anymore. Actually, I know one person
no,
that recently added one. He's like the first time I've seen it in like years.
years. Yeah, funny enough, a buddy of mine was he's got a standard Marineland style tank, but he wants it to be quieter. So I said, well, just use the overflows as they are and have your returns come up the back, so you can run it like a Herbie,
Hmm.
right? So behind the overflows, you got your two drains, and then run it up over the edge. And he's like, well, what am I going to do with that return line? Should I drill the back of the tank, or? And I was like, no, just get a sea swirl, stick it up there, and just
Done.
let it do its thing. That's one of your water motion devices out of the way.
Hmm.
Um, but no, Powerheads have come a really, really long way. Like when Corallias came out, they changed everything, made it
Hmm.
so much easier. Then when Vortex came out, everybody's mind was blown. Uh, Obviously, Tunes was huge as well, and Wave boxes way back in the day, and they're still available. But no, I think the fact that there are so many options for getting flow in the tank these days
Hmm.
makes it both the easiest thing to do and also the hardest because people get really, really, really caught up on what is best.
Hmm.
Oh man, I've had this conversation with you before too. But people get so fixated on what the best thing is, not realizing that it's not a best brand or a best pump or a best. It's they're all good, as long as it's a reputable product that's going to last. But they're all good at doing different things. So it
Hmm.
depends on what you're trying to accomplish.
Yeah.
So
And
yeah, but no, there's lots of options. So
and the thing is, like, almost all of them are gonna work, right? Like, there's not one that's not gonna work for you. Like, some are more polished, or they got more features and bells and whistles, but they're all gonna work. Um,
exactly.
okay, first one scrolls away. Stabello was asking, have you ever used a diatom filter?
Yes.
Yeah.
I've used a few. Like if you're talking about like the old school, oh, who made them? It looked like a clear bell with a black external motor on the top. Oh, I can't remember the brand. But anyways, you'd like charge them first on a
Yeah.
pail and then move them to the tank. Yeah, I've 100% used those on a number of times for polishing tanks, like before like dinner parties or before guests were coming over or whatever. Yeah,
Just
100%. Yeah,
shine it up before all the company comes. Nice.
exactly.
Oh, Insane Reefer, no more closed loops. Yeah, those have kind of fallen out of style.
Yeah, I only ever used one once. I used it on that 40 breeder
Hmm.
back in 2009, and I loved it. It was
Hmm.
awesome. I that on that tank, I had no power heads at all. So my goal with that
Nice.
tank was just nothing electronic in the tank. So I drilled 7 holes in that tank, 8 holes, I don't know. But so the return came up through the back, the
Hmm.
closed loop came in through the sides, and they were both run on, do you remember the squids, switching
Yeah.
current water director? So, or device, whatever the heck they were
So
called. So
just
I had
randomly
2 of
pick an
those.
output.
Exactly. So it just kept switching back and forth. So
Hmm.
all the time I had like 4,000 gallons an hour of water flow, just like constantly changing directions.
Nice.
And it worked out pretty well. But yeah, no, they
Mhm.
have kind of died,
They have. It's
which is sad because there's so many like really great DC pumps that would do an
mhm.
amazing job of running a closed loop.
The, yeah, it's just that fear of putting a hole in the bottom of 100 plus gallons of water is just an extra level of sketchiness. I debated them so many times for my peninsulas just to get extra water on the far end. But I'm like, yeah, I don't want a hole in the bottom of my tank,
That's
just
totally
in
fair, man.
case. I think that's why, to be honest. All right, so Ryan was asking about your 40 breeder. He says it changed his life. He says Thomas was doing revolutionary stuff ahead of his time.
Way back when
Way
it
back when.
was, yeah. That tank was that tank was probably one of the better tanks that I had set up over the years. I tried a lot of things, and that tank was at the time. He's right. It was ahead of its time at the time. I spent so much time on the forums, and I put all of the information that I've gotten at that time, everybody's ideas, everything I'd learned, and I kind of put it into one system. And the stand and canopy were custom built for that tank. Like I said, I drilled a whack load of holes in it. I had a custom overflow built for the corner. Um, just everything about that system was meant to be the best of the best of the best at that time, and it worked
Mhm.
incredibly well.
Nice.
Uh, yeah, so it was just one of those situations where everything I did seemed to work out perfectly. The only thing that changed on that system was the lighting, and that's when I went
Mhm.
from the Halites and Power Compact combo and switched over to the T5s, and that was awesome. But it just did
Nice.
well. The tank did well. Everything in the tank was
Yeah.
happy all the time. So
It is a beautiful little tank. I pulled up the picture for a sec, but yeah, it's thriving. You got a lot of coral packed into there. Like it looks bigger than a 40.
yeah, that's actually the funniest thing about it. Like it doesn't look like a 40. It's a 40 breeder.
Love it. That's one thing that I find is a cool way to do it is like as long as you keep that scale, you kind of get lost and it's hard to tell how big a tank really is, right? As long as you keep the scale semi-relative.
Yeah, for sure.
Um Now, how about stocking wise? Have you changed anything like on the fish front? Like did you used to do tons of fish in your tank? Was it lightly stocked? Has that changed at all with your mentality at all on reefing?
So when it came to fish, have always like straight up always been secondary to me. It's always been about the corals and clams, corals and clams. That's, I love corals and
Yeah.
clams. I don't know. However, um, especially after seeing a lot of the more successful reefers these days, especially on larger scale tanks and stuff, people are packing fish into especially SPS dominated tanks, and
Hmm.
equipment and methods for keeping nutrients down have gotten so good
Hmm.
that it's possible to do that. When I was, keeping fish way back when, if you packed fish into a tank, you were going to run into nutrient issues. Like it was either
Hmm.
that or you did a buttload of water changes.
Yeah.
So I'm a lot more interested in putting more fish in my tank with this build than
Hmm.
I have ever been before. So my stocking plans for this tank is probably like 20-ish fish, I think. Whereas back, uh, I don't know, even 5 years ago, I would have probably told you I'm not putting more than 6 to 12 fish in there,
Okay.
just to keep my life easy.
Yep.
But yeah, no, I think these days stocking heavily is a lot easier than it used to be. So yeah, I am going to be putting more fish in there.
Hmm.
I've got 3 fish in my tank. The
Ooh.
pair of clowns
Yeah.
that people have been seeing in videos, they're there, but I
Nice.
just added a new fish, and I'm not going to say what it is or anything like that until it
Tease.
stops being shy,
Tease.
and then
Okay.
people can just see it.
Fair enough. All right. Yeah, that still makes me laugh so much. Is like you're saying, it's easier to add more fish because filtration's better. And I'm always amazed that I see like so many posts about people being like, "Oh, how do I raise nutrients in my tank now?" Right? Where everyone was like, "How do I get rid of them?" 5 years ago. It's such a different outlook, which is kind of crazy.
It's funny that the conversation flipped like that. Back in the day, we were desperate to get rid of it. Now we're like, what do we do to make it happen?
I know. Add more fish, feed more.
Yeah.
Now, lots of fish poop, good for corals, basically free coral food. So it's another different way to look at it, but I like the natural way personally. But I've never understood dosing nitrates and phosphates directly, but lots of people do.
If you can safely get more fish in there without like aggression issues and you've got nutrient problems, just add more fish and feed. Like it's the best way and I agree with you, in my opinion, it's the best way to get the right kind of nutrients going in the tank, right? This is what happens in the wild. They don't have liquid fertilizers being dumped in. They've got fish guts that are processing things probiotically and pooping it out of their rear ends. And that's what's available to the corals, right? So yeah, no, I agree with you.
And well, it's a natural nutrient instead of whatever is in the bottle of nitrates and phosphates, right? So you're probably getting a lot more good stuff than something that just to bump that level. That's my thoughts.
I would think it's basically more in proportion. So they don't just poop out pure nitrate and phosphate. There's other things mixed in, other organics that are biologically available, but with bioavailability. I don't know what the correct phrase is, but yeah, so makes more sense. Otherwise, so we add phosphate and nitrate, but what about all those other things that should naturally be coming along with it? What if they end up deficient? Do we even measure those currently?
Do we know? Do we care? I don't know. Nobody knows. It's like unsolved reefing mysteries. Now,
you got to start a new chapter in your YouTube career.
Unsolved reefing mysteries.
Yes, and then you have to have like foreboding music and wear a trench coat and like a cap that's tilted down and stand in the rain.
Today on Unsolved Reefing Mysteries.
Exactly.
Do nitrates really exist? Yep. Okay. Saif is asking, what are your top suggestions to keep a well-maintained tank?
For me?
I don't know, both of us. Go first.
Well-maintained tank? I think that the most honest and straightforward answer is a well-maintained tank is a tank that's looked at. Like if you set up a tank and just throw equipment on it and walk away and only look at it like once a day for 5 minutes, and then the rest of the time you're just kind of going about your day, you're going to have a hard time keeping in touch with the tank and being able to tell when things change. A lot of things that happen in a reef happen on a very small scale that is difficult to notice unless you're constantly checking the tank. So if you're out of touch with it and you're not looking at it all the time, you're not going to notice something until it's happened so drastically that it's already too large of a problem, and you're going to have a very hard time getting on top of it, basically. Yep. So the more time you spend with your tank, the better chances are you're going to have an easy time with it, because you're going to catch on faster to things that are changing.
No, that's fair. 100% agree. And people always say, where you put a tank, put it whatever room you spend the most time in, right? You want it somewhere you're going to look at it and not ignore it. I know lots of people throw them in the basement or somewhere because of the weight or something, but if you're never down there, you're not enjoying it, you're going to neglect it. If it's in the middle of your living room, you're going to make sure it looks good all the time because you see it every day, your company sees it. There's got to be somewhere where you're going to enjoy it and, take advantage of that beautiful little chunk of ocean. Someone else was asking if you'd play a guitar song later.
Sure.
Yeah.
Maybe. We'll see. It's not going to sound great because I'm this mic, but
you got a little
maybe one day I'll get rigged up properly and I'll.
Yeah. Okay. We'll do like a reef concert.
we'll write some reef songs, like some
perfect
real tearjerkers.
You got the little Pokemon monster gremlin guy on your guitar.
Oh yeah, this is my Gengar guitar.
Gengar, there we go. That's his name. Nice. That's awesome. You still play that? Are you hardcore?
Yeah, man.
Been a while since I played. Just curious. Okay.
Pokemon?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, dude. I'm gonna at some point, I don't know when, but I am gonna do a Pokemon build. I don't know if it's gonna be a reef tank, but I'm 100% gonna do a themed Pokemon build. I have like a giant Pokeball on the wall from Additive Reef.
Nice.
In the other room, and I've got so much Pokemon like paraphernalia and memorabilia or whatever you want to call it. Paraphernalia. I'm hoarding it. It's a legal Pokemon. I've got the world's only Master Ball, and nobody can have it. Yeah, exactly. But no, I've been a geek on Pokemon since it came out, and it's never stopped. Nice. I always pre-order. I'm just a massive child.
That's good. That's good. It's good to have many hobbies. Keeps you well-rounded. Whatever happened to the Pokemon theme tank? Oh, we just said it. Yep. Have you?
It just got sidetracked.
So Kyle made you a Pokeball?
It's huge. It's literally like this big around. Yeah.
That's awesome.
It's backlit and everything, just like my BRS TV sign. Yeah.
Yep. Okay, send me a photo later. I want to see this.
I will.
Have you seen what's the other crazy one he's building right now? Fallout.
The Fallout build,
Yeah,
yeah,
that's pretty
I
crazy.
follow that. Oh man, yeah.
No, that's pretty cool. He comes up with the craziest things. I love watching it.
He is super talented, man.
He
Super
really
talented.
is. Like he built some cool stuff. I saw Ryan's peek ones he posted the other day. It looks pretty sweet too.
Right? No, it's crazy. And
Mm-hmm.
like his control boards and stuff are so well. They're just so well made. They're simple.
Yep.
The materials that he uses make perfect sense because it literally is not affected by water in any way, shape, or form.
Yeah, it's PVC.
Yeah, and you can drill into it like it's wood. Like it's
Yeah,
brilliant.
it's cool, and it's like surprisingly light. It weighs like nothing. It's weird.
Yeah,
Because you
you'd
assume it'd be
expect
this
it to be
big heavy wood thing. You're like, oh, this is like nothing.
Yeah, when I put my first one together, when it showed up, I got one of the deluxe boards.
Yeah.
I lifted the box up and I was like floored that
Is
it
it
didn't weigh
empty?
more. Oh, exactly. I was like,
Did I get scammed? Is it full of packing foam?
is there another part of this?
Yeah.
Where's all the weight? Yeah, no, they're really smart, really nifty.
No, that's cool. All right, so I'm not gonna keep you too long because I know we're already a bit later than we anticipated due to unknown time zones. Uh, now, you're using controller for the first time. Is there any other kind of crazy gear that you want to try that you've never tried before, or you think it'd be really cool to do?
Oh, yes. So I've never tried a calcium reactor, and I really want to give it a shot. So I personally never tried it because A, they seemed overly complicated and finicky.
Mm-hmm.
Remember, my first introduction to calcium reactors was in like 2006, and back then people weren't quite as good at running them as they are now. We didn't have all the same gear that we do now. So I have an FXSTP
Mm-hmm.
Kimura, continuous duty doser,
Yep.
and I've seen how Ryan and Randy like run calcium reactors on easy mode
Yep.
by pegging the pH and just like adjusting the doser.
H.
It makes so much sense to me that I basically have told myself there's no reason for me not to at least give it a try now, especially because if I don't have to, mess around with a dosing system with 3 separate dosers for 2-part and
Mm-hmm.
constantly mix up 2-part jugs and stuff, and I can just let this thing go.
Yep.
I think that's probably
It's
an easier way to do it.
Once you dial it in, it is way easier. So you add your media, and you're basically getting your calcium and your rock to the tank. You can add magnesium rocks. So I mean, after a little bit, test it. Your magnesium's low, whatever. Add some more rocks to the reactor, and then you're good. Now, once your pH is set, same thing. Once you have a parasolic pump, like that is key. You're like, oh, my elk is trending down a little bit. Let me add 2 more mils to my effluent drip. You're done. That's it. Elk's getting low. Up at a couple mils, or up at a mil. It's going higher. Drop at a mil. Like it's super duper easy with a parasolic pump.
Yeah, and that was the key thing. I didn't want to have to constantly fuss around with a CO2 regulator. Like I've used CO2 for planet
Mhm.
tanks and stuff, but the idea of also having to run it through a reactor
Yeah.
and then worry about the effluent from the reactor and all that, I
Mhm.
was like, no, thank you. But yeah, no, it sounds so much easier now, and I think it's due time that I give one a try. So
Oh, I think you should. I love them. Super duper stable. My new Geo one that I had in my tank. Once I had it dialed in, my fluctuation over 12 hours was 0.03 of a DKH. It's like nothing. It's like crazy how stable it is. Like mine's like stupid oversized. Like it's made for like a 400, 800 gallon tank on my 200 gallon tank. Like so, it's like crazy stable because there's so much media that's always at like perfect saturation. You don't have to worry about the flow fluctuating it. It's just like crazy stable. So and cheap.
I may have already kind of convinced Reef Octopus to put out a DC version of one of their dual reactors because I mean, I was like, so I know I want to do a calcium reactor. I know I do. I keep saying if I do, I'm probably going to do it. But I basically called them and I was like, hey, why don't you have a DC version with 2 chambers? Because I want a DC one, but I also really want dual chamber. And they're like, well, okay. And then that was basically the end of the conversation.
Dude,
so
I had the exact same question like 4 months ago. I'm like, why are there no DC ones? I literally sent them an S2 pump to build onto it, to build it with a pump because I wanted it to be dead quiet. Right. I'm like, why are they all AC? Like the Syces are like awesome pumps and they're quiet and they're pretty common. I'm like, why is there no DC ones?
Yeah, it made no sense to me. So they're going to, I think they're going to be putting out a dual. Hopefully, I'm not like leaking information I'm not supposed to talk about. But but yeah, they should be a dual, like a what do they call it? Varios? Yeah, a Varios Reef Octopus reactor. dual chamber, and I'll use that. And it's going to be massive, right? My system, the tank is a XL 300. So what is it, like 70 or 80 gallons? Plus I'm going to have a giant sump on it now. So it's not even going to be 100 gallons. And I know the reactor is going to be rated for at least 200. So hopefully I'll be in the same situation you're in, instead of, I figured if going bigger can't hurt.
Exactly. No, I think going bigger is actually an advantage, because once it resets saturation point, it just stays there. Now, if you have too small of a reactor and your effluent is too fast, you might be fighting to keep that stability inside of it. So that just keeps it like dead, super crazy stable. So good way to go.
Sweet.
And disclaimer, yes, I know it's CJ. I say it wrong every time. Correct myself later.
I bug him about that too. Don't worry.
Yeah, I know. So I know it, but I've said it that way for like 10 years. I can't. That's ingrained into me.
Do you know how long it took me to stop saying Cheeto?
How long?
I used to get forever, man. Like I used to get harped on for it anytime I said it. For like the last, how long have I been doing videos? Like 5 or 6 years. Like I just recently stopped saying it.
Yeah.
So there you go.
There you go. Awesome. Okay, Smoking Reefers. My Cheeto is growing mad in my fuge, and I also have heraldry growing in there. Well, not as much. Shall I remove it or leave in the fuge? Honestly, it's same as Cheeto. It's growing and sucking out nutrients.
Yeah, now, it's basically a turf algae scrubber now.
Yeah.
Algae turf scrubber.
Heraldry is a simpler algae, and it grows faster than Cheeto, so it's probably pulling out a little more than you think. So it's very efficient algae for export. As long as it's not in your tank, who cares? All right, Thomas. I know it's past the time of the children.
We still got 10 minutes.
Do we?
If you want to squeeze out another 10 minutes.
All right, I'm down. Let's do it. Okay. If you guys got any, what's your favorite additive? Oh, that's a good question.
Like just in general?
I guess so. Yeah, we'll go with it.
Oh man. You know what? I don't even know. What have I used the most of other than like 2-part? Honestly, I've used AcroPower for years. I've used AcroPower for a long time, and any tank I've ever added it to, it's been pretty obvious gains in terms of tissue expansion and color. Like,
okay, so if you stop dosing it, or if you start dosing it, do you notice like a visible change
when you stop,
or when you start again? Like when you first start doing it, is it a noticeable impact for you?
I've used it on a few systems. There was one system I didn't use it right away. It was a 20-gallon system that I was running in an office on a canister filter. That system had other issues too, like heavy metals were getting leached in through a UV sterilizer brand, who everybody is aware has a metal sleeve in it, and caused all kinds of problems. But once I got rid of that, things were looking better, but not what I expected. So I started using AcroPower again.
Yep.
And that system, like literally within a week, I had a stagnant period of like 3 or 4 weeks where things just were where they were. Started using AcroPower and started seeing more color in the acros. And my zoanthids actually started to like grow in size. Like, yeah, so they were smaller and grouped together very tightly, and they started to like expand a little bit more. But most notably, like acros, coloration, polyp extension, and tissue inflation is where I saw it. I haven't ever, once I started using it, I don't think there was ever a point where I stopped. And when you work at an aquarium place, you don't really ever forget to buy things because you're always right there.
You're like, oh, so, nice, thanks.
Exactly. Yeah. And so I never ran into a situation where I was like, oh, I can't dose AcroPower for a few weeks.
Okay.
But yeah, I can't say whether or not they like retract back to where they were if you stop dosing it.
Okay. So I used to always have it on a doser, and I actually haven't put it on a doser yet. So I just randomly dose it when I think about it on this tank. So I've keep debating if I should do that. So I was kind of curious how big of an impact that you felt you get from it. Like one of my buddies swears like night and day. He's like within a few days, it's like a huge difference for him. So I don't know if I've seen quite an apparent difference, but I used to just automate it and just always did it. And no, I haven't yet. So keep thinking about it.
In theory, the best way that like I've been able to look at it and kind of conceptualize what's actually happening, because anytime you have something you put in that you can't test for, it's hard to quantify what's happening other than anecdotal, right? Yeah. But if you look at the way aminos are used for cell function and just in general, how aminos are absorbed by the body. If you don't have enough of aminos in the system, and you can't measure them, but if you don't have enough, it's a bottleneck. Like
Yeah.
it stops other things from happening. So you can have everything in the tank running perfectly. Everything you can test is perfect. And you're like, my acros just don't look like the ones at Reef Raft or the
Yeah.
ones at Worldwide Corals, or why can't I get them to look like the Battle Corals pictures?
Mm-hmm.
There's a good chance that if everything else that you can test is correct, there's a bottleneck somewhere preventing it. And aminos is one of the first places you should look, because it is a part of just general nutrition that's so easy to breeze over. And I love watching people like argue which one's the best one. Like,
is there a
use this
difference?
one or
Or are
use
they
that
all
one.
good?
Just try one. An amino acid, as long as it's made for like a reef system, is going to do a half decent job. I'm not going to start talking about which one's the best or the worst, or if it glows, it's better, and if it doesn't, it's not. Like, I don't know. Like, I straight up don't know. But what I can say is, like, for sure, if you have a bottleneck and you can't figure out what's causing it, trying an amino will not hurt, and it's a really smart idea.
All right, you motivated me. I'll try them again. more than like once or twice a week when I randomly think about it. Now, did you dose it daily?
I had weekly by hand on one system, and then the 20-gallon tank, it ended up on a doser, and it was going in daily at a very small amount. Only because I figured, well, if I dose it once a week and I get that amount all in, if it all gets sucked up right away, then they have to wait the entire week to get more. I'm better off just adding small amounts all the time.
Yeah, I'm with you on that one. Dose it nighttime, daytime, any difference?
I did
Randomly?
not. I never, full disclosure, never paid attention to when things got dosed, as long as they weren't dosed at the same time. So just like arbitrarily, this one's at noon and this one's at 3 and this one's at 7. Like, I just didn't care. And I would assume with aminos, it doesn't really matter, because it's going to be absorbed through the cell wall anyways, like through the skin or whatever. It's not, they don't ingest it.
Yeah.
So feeding tentacles out or not, the body's just going to pull it in, I would assume.
Yeah, that's fair.
I'm not a scientist.
Yeah, they probably more absorb it too. I don't think the tentacles catch the amino, so probably doesn't matter.
Exactly. Yeah, I would expect that it just gets absorbed through the cell wall.
All right.
Membrane.
Nick was asking, favorite fish food or favorite thing to feed your fish?
I've switched foods over the years about a bazillion times.
Yeah.
So it's hard to say. One thing I've always fed to my tanks was nori. Like, in one form or another. Sometimes it's just like the supermarket special, pack of unflavored, uncooked, unsalted, just straight up nori sheets. And I've also used julienne sprung stuff because I like the idea of getting the red and the purple and the green and mixing it together. Mind you, I love the color purple. Don't know if you can tell.
What? Never.
Are my jam, right? So, I was like, purple seaweed.
Nice.
My tangs like almost ignored it unless it was the last one in there. So I don't know. Yeah, I don't know why. Red and green always seem to do the best for me. But nori almost exclusively all the time, and mysis shrimp. Those two things. Frozen mysis, different brands. Hikari is the one I used for a very long time, but there's so many good like PE mysis is like top notch. And cyclopes.
Yeah, those are good too.
Right? Cyclopes. But like actual canned foods or like bottles of food. Right now I'm using the BRS pellets, which are pretty awesome. I've done tropic foods, tropical. I've done Hikari, New Life Spectrum. I've tried everything. I've never really noticed a massive difference. As long as you're eating a mix of all kinds of stuff. Yeah. It's
variety,
hard to
spice of life.
Exactly. And I really want to this year, which I haven't done a lot of, is homemade foods. Do you do homemade foods?
I never have. I've thought about it.
We should do a live stream together where we
we'll
both make homemade foods.
That'd be fun. Let's do it.
Aprons and everything.
Okay, let's do it. I'm in. Yeah, I know. I'm with you. I've never fed the purple nori. I normally just go to the Asian supermarket and buy a big pack of sushi nori, and that's like my daily staple. So today they were lucky. They got 2 sheets today, but normally there's one of those every single morning, and then majority of the time I feed PE mysis at night. PE mysis is actually from my local lake, which I learned like 5 years into reefing. I was like, sweet, I'm feeding local.
Amazing. Just go take a net, buddy. Go catch your own.
I was actually talking. I might actually go out on the boat and like just for fun and go check it out. Maybe go film some of it and do like where the fish food comes from or something. Yeah, and I'm thinking about it. That might actually happen. I was having this conversation yesterday, so
get like a cup of it live.
I should
learn how to grow it at home.
I should
send me some.
That'd be kind of cool. Throw a bunch of live mysis in the tank. Fish probably go crazy over it.
Oh man, could you imagine? Also, everybody in the chat right now, convince Devin to send me coral frags for my empty tank.
I have this lovely frag tank I will set up soon. Ask me in a few months when I actually have a frag tank full of corals.
I will.
I know you will. By then, your tank will be ready.
Yeah, for sure.
Yep. So it'll be good. Excellent. All right, man. Okay, one last question. Do you dose Phyto when it came up?
Oh, I used to dose Phyto like religiously all the time because I always in every system have tridacnid clams, which is something I never talked about. I've never had a reef tank that I've kept long term, and by long term I mean anything over 4 months that had or didn't have a tridacnid clam. So I've kept all of them. So Durasa, Squamosa, Crocea, Acrocia, Maxima. I even had a Hoppopus at one time. Not any of the new like fancy ones that they've discovered that are $1,000 bazillion now, but like all of the standards, like the staples over the years, I've kept, and they are one of my favorite ways to naturally filter the water. And when you get young ones, one of the easiest ways to try to make sure that they're getting everything they need is just to dose like live Phyto. And yeah, so I've done lots of it. I've grown live Phyto, dosed the living heck out of it, and rotifers too. I
cultured and dosed it for years, but now I've just decided it's easier to just get like the big balls of Reef Nutrition and dose it. So much easier.
Sure, man. Yeah,
so much easier.
100%. Unless you've got a reason to like feed live. Like if I'm going out and getting seriously like baby clams, like 1 or 2 inch Maximas and stuff that are just so small they probably shouldn't be sold. I am 100% going to culture live Phyto and feed it. It's just the success rate's a lot higher. But yeah, no, I used to all the time. If I can avoid it, I will, just because it's another thing to have to do. But
yeah, any clam less than 3 inches, you ideally want to be feeding your tank Phyto for it.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Favorite clam?
Oh, I cannot pick Durasa.
Durasa? Okay.
It's probably not the popular choice. I do like them a lot. They're also, if anybody is wondering about what clam you should start with, if you have the room, Durasa, Squamosa, they're both easy. They're very forgiving. They will suck up calcium alkalinity faster than anything else in your tank. So be aware of that. But you cannot discount the nutrient sink that they become as well. So if you have nutrient issues, clams can actually help quite a bit. Durasa being one of the most forgiving. They actually use Durasa clams in waterways to purify them before the water gets back to the ocean.
Really?
Yeah.
Crazy.
So yeah, they're a really robust, fun clam, but they do get very big. So you got to have the space for them.
Mine's like a football. Nice squammy.
Squammies? Squammies are the best, man.
I love it.
They're good too.
It's cool looking. It's huge. It's ridiculously big, but it looks awesome.
Just start gluing frags to the side of it. I've always had this concept. Yeah, I want to get like one big clam and then just glue my reef to the sides of it. And that's the Rockwork. That's everything. Just a clam with a reef sticking off the side, and that's it. It's probably not really feasible, but hey.
I've debated putting zoas on the side of it, but I'm like, I don't know if they'll grow up there and annoy it, and I never have. But I'm like, it would look kind of cool if you had this rainbow of colors up the side of the shell on all those little things. It's already full of sponges. I mean, it's half full of pink sponges now, so.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah.
That's a great start. I would be worried about the mantle getting stung, personally.
Yeah, that's why I didn't do it. But
yeah.
Sponges
we can dream, right?
I know, right? Exactly. All right, buddy. Appreciate you coming on today. It was a great chat. Share some of the legacy of Thomas's reefing career.
The legacy that is.
From a young lad to today of reefing.
A still relatively young lad, I guess.
You're still a young lad.
Yeah, man.
Middle-aged young lads now.
I'll take it. My kids make me feel old, man. Holy, they keep you on your toes.
Yeah. How old are your kids?
I've got my daughter. She's 4 or 5. Yeah, she's turning 5 in October, and my son turned 3 at the end of July.
Oh, so nice. That's awesome.
Yeah, 3 and 5. Young kids, young enough to like really keep you on your toes and stuff, but old enough that we're like basically just getting out of like the baby phase. We're so close that there being no more diapers in the house or anything else. So
you're in the tiny human fun age.
Yeah. Oh, they're the best. Kids are crazy.
Awesome. Okay. No, that's good. It's good. Okay. Percy Adams. Zoa's almost killed by Maximas. Interesting. Yes. Maybe don't put them on the side. There you go.
Probably not a good idea.
All right, man. Thanks again. I hope you
My
guys
pleasure.
enjoyed. Hopefully, you guys enjoyed tonight's stream. As always, hit that like button. If you're new, make sure you subscribe, and we'll catch you guys on next week's video.